people assume that the pendulum's going to swing the far opposite way, that they're going to go from being
Yeah.
lazy and unproductive to, well, now I don't ever sleep and, my whole life is crazy and I'm
Dude,
burning out.
that's like the guy who hasn't been in the gym in 3 years and like, "Man, I'm gonna get in here and do some stuff, but I don't wanna get too carried away with it. I don't wanna look like Arnold Schwarzenegger or anything." Like, "Dude, we're good.
Right.
You're."
Yeah. It-
If you start getting to that point, we'll holler at you and tell you to slow it down. That was John Michael Morgan, good friend of mine, business coach, and best-selling author. He works with people in a one-on-one setting, group coaching, and he's worked with the big brands like Disney, Pixar, and Starbucks. In this episode, he's going to talk to us about the future of marketing, the number one issue we're all running into right now as entrepreneurs, small business owners, and busy folks, and then how to fix it. This is good. Do more by doing less. With me, Charles Alexander, for small business owners, startups, and busy folks.
I would love that.
Would you? You can put your podcast face on?
Yeah. Now I'm not going to talk at all. I'm just going to freeze up.
What all are you doing right now? First and foremost, you've got your group, your coaching group. What else is going on?
So I've got Momentum Mastery, the group, and we're about to start like opening the doors publicly to that. First event for that's coming up. And then I'm finishing my book. I don't know if I'm going to release it this year or early next year, but that's almost finished. Then the other things that I have going on at the moment are I've got a few clients who've actually brought me in to have an ownership in their company.
Wow.
So yeah, like so
Is there a
not
donut shop in the mix?
wouldn't that be great? So that's there's not a negotiation with that. It's like,
Sure.
we're friends. It's not, a hard thing, but it's figuring out what's the expectations, what's my level of involvement, how can I actually help and contribute? And then also what percentage of ownership does that look like? So there's that. And then the other thing, and I don't know why this has happened, although it's great, there's a whole lot of companies that have been bringing me in more frequently than usual to coach their entire teams and help their teams with their mindset, culture,
Yeah.
staying focused, not getting burnt out. That's like a big thing I'm seeing is a lot of people borderline on that. So I've had a lot of those projects recently, which are a lot of fun, but also they're big and they're a lot of
Yeah.
work. So
How
I've
are
kind of had that going on.
well, how are folks how are they knowing you're not promoting that? How are they coming to you?
So I think there's a few things. There's the brand of John Michael Morgan, and that can be they've discovered through word of mouth or case studies and seeing results or whatever. But then I think it's coming through the content. I get a lot of messages that basically are saying, here's our problem. Can you help?
What's the
And,
biggest what's the
yeah.
biggest problem you're seeing right now, not just with the big brands, but with folks my size?
Something that you and I have talked about a lot because you navigate this better than most. It's distractions.
Ugh.
They're just absolutely, yeah. And I mean,
Hold
this
on a
has been
second. Go ahead.
this has been an issue for a long time of people being distracted, but for some reason right now it's worse than ever before. So people are, like, look, the news is a distraction. The media and all that's a, distraction. There's always a story out there. There's always some breaking, news and something, that's happening that takes a lot of our energy and our emotions and our focus. But then the other side of it is then there's like drama. I do some work with some companies that are publicly traded. So anytime there's a rumor of them changing anything, it's like everyone just stops.
Sure.
They're like, well, let's not work until we see, if the rumors are
Oh god, I
true.
see that a lot, yeah.
Yeah. And I'm like, no, like you still got stuff to do.
Right.
Like you still, there's still work to be done. So it's everything. I'm just seeing that all over the place. And to add to that, if I may, I think people are also like, they don't want to own the fact that they're allowing it and they don't have boundaries and the discipline to stay focused. So they're getting mad. They're like, well, my kids are a distraction or my coworkers, or well, this thing happened and that's not my fault. And it's like, listen, we can play that card and be the victim all day long, or
Right.
you can take responsibility and say, how do I protect my focus as much as possible? So again, I know that's not like a new challenge that people
Sure.
have had, but for whatever reason, already this year and a lot of last year, it's like magnified tremendously.
Dude, I've been doing in the same spot since '07, which I used to think I would be, really proud of, but now I take a look back and it's like I've been here 16 years, which is basically kindergarten through almost your last year of college. So I don't know if I should be proud of it or if I'm like that dude that's lurking around the college. Like there's old Chuck. Yeah, he knows everything, man. He's a party animal. But he won't go anywhere. But even in back then, before we had, I'm reaching for my wallet like pocket like that, before we had our magic devices, and then
Mhm.
even worse to see people walking around nonstop. I'm just as bad with earbuds in
Yeah.
everywhere. And I've had to get into a better habit at home where the kids will start talking to me and they know I'm not listening because I got Mike Birbiglia or Conan O'Brien in one ear. So even back then, people were hyper distracted. Now is multi times worse. If you're an existing business owner, what's something that you personally tell somebody here? What's like the lowest hanging fruit, which is a term I hate but use. Get over that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing is turning off notifications on your phone. One of the things I'm noticing is that people, text messaging is now a very normal, common, accepted, sometimes preferred method of communication, and yet people don't. They either they'll either silence their phone for a little bit or have it, unsilenced, right? And it's like, no, mute every single person that's ever texted me. I mute that conversation except for my wife.
Right. No,
That's
I
it.
know. I
Right,
found
right.
out.
Yeah, and it's, but that's one of the things I see people. I've been with people before. I'm sure you have as well. And we'll have coffee or something. And their phone will be sitting out, and you see the notifications, and it's like, this stock price dropped.
Yeah.
You've got an email, from
Sure.
Pottery Barn about candles on sale, or it's like what
Missing child in
it,
India.
absolutely. And it's that thing of like, oh my gosh, like what, like it seems harmless when you add it all up. This is distracting you in a huge way. So that's the lowest hanging fruit. I think the next thing is, that's also easy if you just have the discipline. Unfollow the people you're following on social media. Like, you don't have to follow all those people. You can hide them, you can mute them. I think one of the problems that we're having with business owners, whether you're a startup or, already been around, let's say a decade or two, is that people are consuming what others want them to consume rather than what
Right.
they want to consume. I don't want to open Instagram and consume whatever Instagram wants to show me. There's specific information that I want to fill my mind with, and I only want to see that. Everyone else gets muted.
So if you're a startup, and I work with a bunch of folks that are starting up, I always recommend they kind of hang on to their existing job before they take off and do whatever it is that they're going to do. So that adds to the layer of distraction. So if I'm Charles Alexander and I'm starting a business, still have my, existing job, what do I need to do? What's an easy thing in addition to turning off notifications? How can I get undistracted to kind of launch that business?
Yeah, I think you have to treat it like it's a second job.
Okay.
So what I see a lot of people do is, at their current gig, if the boss says that something needs to be done, they go and do it.
Right.
On the side hustle that they're building up, if they're like, "Oh, I really need to do this today," but no one knows other than you if you do it or not, well, then I'll just push it off till tomorrow
Sure. Oh,
because
that's a
I'm
great call.
stressed, or, this
Yeah.
sports game's on the night or whatever. Like, not a big thing. So it's having that discipline to say that the side hustle is just as important. It is not making the same amount of money. It's not providing and feeding and, all that yet. However, it has to, from day one, be treated as a serious, important thing. Otherwise, you may eventually have the success, but it's going to take a lot longer than it has
Yeah.
to, because you're just not treating it as such.
Dude, yeah, that's 1,000,000% right, and I do that sometimes. I've got my own side business, it's grown, and I'll do all the things here that I need to do, and then during lunch or after hours, if I need to rewrite, part of a sales funnel or update the copy on my site or follow up with people, if I don't have a boss looming over me, I can tend to push it off.
Absolutely, right? And that's the thing, like, what changed my whole career was when I viewed myself and, like, my business as a client. So if I'm a client, what am I doing? So, oh, I blocked out time to help this client. I got to show up. I got to be disciplined. Like, just this little mental sort of trick. that I would play with myself to see like how do I actually show up and not do the things we're talking about of, well, I can do that tomorrow. I can do that next week. I'll
Right.
do that next month. Instead, it was like, well, no, this client needs this done. And just having that discipline to do it, for a lot of people, it's not will my side hustle succeed? It's when will it succeed?
Right.
And they're in the driver's seat for that. I mean, that's the thing. Like, it just depends on how much you want to put into it and how often. And I'm not about hustle 24/7,
Right.
or any of that.
Grind,
Right,
work
right,
your face off.
right. But what's really funny, Charles, is how many people will say to me, "Oh, well, I don't want to, do the hustle culture and 24/7 and all that." And I'm like, "You're so far away from being burnt out that let's not worry about
Yeah.
that, right?" People assume that the pendulum's going to swing the far opposite way, that they're going to go from being
Yeah.
lazy and unproductive to, well, now I don't ever sleep and, my whole life is crazy and I'm
Dude,
burning out.
that's like the guy who hasn't been in the gym in 3 years and like, "Man, I'm gonna get in here and do some stuff, but I don't wanna get too carried away with it. I don't wanna look like Arnold Schwarzenegger or anything." Like, "Dude, we're good.
Right.
You're."
Yeah. It-
If you start getting to that point, we'll holler at you and tell you to slow it down. By the way, I just showed my age. I sat here for a split second, thought of bodybuilder. Arnold was the only thing that came to mind. I know no one
I,
else.
I don't think there's ever been another bodybuilder. It's only
Well,
Arnold, right?
I
Like
could I
that's
could have
the
at least pulled like a
that's it.
John Cena or something. No relative frame of reference. All ladies, folks. Sorry about that. So you do all of this coaching, all of this speaking. You still do one-on-ones. But dude, as long as I've known you, your frame of mind of 2 things you've always worked on is mindset stuff and marketing stuff. And there's all these other things people all the time and you speak on other things, but people, about leadership and teamwork and 15 other things. What made you settle in on marketing and mindset and why should they settle in on that?
Oh, good question. I'll give you the shortest version of it possible. So
Okay.
I used to not be in that field of coaching and consulting. And the thing that I was good at in businesses that I would run was marketing. And the marketing and branding got me attention from other companies who then
Right.
wanted help. So I was like, yeah, I love it. So let's talk about it. It's obviously important. What I realized in going into it is I only did the marketing and branding for a few years. And inevitably, what would happen is you would lay out like the greatest strategy in the world, but their self-talk is bad. They're full of self-doubt.
Right.
They're sabotaging along the way. And I would see all the work we spent not ever get implemented or again get sabotaged or diluted along the way. And I thought, oh my God, like I can't give them this great marketing plan without first fixing their mindset
Right.
because they're just never going to do it. So then it became this like, you want me to change your marketing and brand? I can. We got to start with something that you don't want to talk about, which is your mindset, right? And
Sure.
work on that. And then in that, what I found was that kind of felt like my calling, if I can sort of describe it that way.
Mhm. You
And
just
so I
said.
still love the marketing and branding, but I realized that mindset affects everyone. So after coaching for several years, and now I've done this 16 years, I feel like what you're talking about. It's like there's so many new coaches that when I say I've been doing it now 16 years, I'm like, oh, that sounds awesome. And then at the same time, I'm like, or is that really sad? Should I already be out?
For people that don't know both of us saying we've been playing basketball for 16 years, or been doing this for 16 years, like saying we both been playing basketball for 16 years, except you're LeBron James and I'm the dude that helped coaches his 10-year-old son's basketball team and hustles at the Y. So we both
Well,
have.
that's
I need yeah.
that's kind of you.
Yeah.
Well, it yeah, so in that, what I discovered was like, wow, the people I would coach who are maybe just starting out, just starting their business, and then the people that let's say are making 20, 25 million a year, there's a lot of the same mindset issues. They're not as different as people think, right? Now, obviously each one may be telling themselves a different story, so there's different reasons for the habits and belief systems and why the results are different, but ultimately it's like, I would talk to a client who would be suffering from imposter syndrome because they just started their business, and
Right.
then I would turn around and talk to the CEO of a Fortune 100 company who's also talking about imposter syndrome because they're like, how did this happen, how am I, in this seat. And that was when I realized like the mindset part applies to all of us. It's been a big part of my personal journey, but also at every level of business, you have to have that part locked in.
How do you do that for yourself?
Geez, how long do you have?
Uh,
That's a really good question. One is it has to be intentional. That's the biggest thing that I learned. You can't sit here and say, "Oh, I'm pretty good right now," and then not work on it. So I have to work on my mindset and protecting my mindset every single day. And so that can look like multiple things: meditation, journaling, watching what I consume. Am I consuming positive, books and podcasts and social media content and these things, like something that's going to actually challenge me and help me, with my goals. The other thing is making sure that I don't plateau. Like, am I growing? I don't want to be the same person this time next year.
sure.
And I've spent the last 5 years working harder on myself internally in my mindset than anything. And that's included, a year of working with a group of pastors to work on the faith side, a year of therapy, a year, like
Yeah.
all these things to put myself in this, not wanting to stay comfortable kind of a state. But the way I view it is that this is what I do. Like, there's nothing else is important in my life. Like, if I take care of my mindset, yes, I'm a good coach and business owner, but I'm also a better father. I'm a
Yep.
better husband. I'm a better friend. So I can't put it last. And I spent too many years putting myself last.
I've always looked at it always. That's a lie. Over the past few years, I've looked at it as that priority, that capstone you hear people talk about. If you do that one thing right, it's going to force everything else to fall into place. This past 2 weeks, great example. I have made a special note to do a couple of different things. First and foremost, I've got to meditate 10 minutes every morning. I heard you say recently you did it for 40 minutes, which is like two Simpsons episodes. I don't know how you did that. For me, though, just that in that 10 minutes, quite frankly, as I say, that it ended up flying by. But I could tell that day I did it, I was a little calmer, a little more
Mm,
rational, a little more chill, and I did it for 3 days in a row. 4th day, what do you think I did? Dude, I'm good. I don't need to meditate anymore. And by that 5th day, it was Friday, I was back to kinda unwinding again. So it's just like going to the gym, right? I
yep.
can't just say I'm, look good, I'm great, I feel good, and then just quit because you atrophy.
Yeah, absolutely. And I used to do this over and over and over with antidepressants. So I had struggled with depression. I would get on, some medicine. It would work, and then I would just stop taking them.
Sure.
And I'd
I'm
be like,
good.
"'Cause I don't even feel like it's doing anything. I'm good. It's working." And then everyone in my life would notice, like, "Are you okay? Like, things seem to be, going downhill."
Why did
And
you
I'm like,
kick the cat again?
yeah, yeah. I'm like, "Oh, I guess I should stay on them. Like, they're working. That's the point." And
Right.
that's a challenge. And it applies to every business owner out there, because this is the other thing. Like, when you start making money and you can exhale a little bit, you got to be careful not to plateau, because all of a sudden it's like, oh, I'm good. And I had this early in my career. I was a real estate agent. And so I'd go from like no money at all to sell a few houses. And all of a sudden I had like 30 grand. And I'm like, oh, dude, I did it. I'm
Yeah.
rich. And then I
Well,
do nothing for 6 months
mhm.
and be like, oh crap, I'm poor again. I gotta fix this. It's like we have to constantly watch for that. And that's why I say, like, it's just, it has to be a priority. And I'm like really irritated. This is how like lame I am about it. So the one of the apps that I use for meditation tracks your streak. And one Tuesday it didn't log mine. I did it,
It
but
cheated.
it glitched. And
Right.
I am contacting them, asking them if they can go in and fix it, because I'm so upset that my
He is
streak is actually
he has
inaccurate.
emailed Headspace or whoever.
Yeah, and it's funny because my wife Brooke was like, "Maybe you should meditate on this if it's that big
Right.
of an issue, like
Heyo.
something that no one else sees, no one cares about." But it was important to me.
That was your streak.
That was
That's
my
the same
streak.
thing that's the same thing that I don't know if it's Snapchat or whoever it is uses to hook my kids into, "Hey, you've snapped X number of days in a row. You should keep going. You're a good friend." Then they get stuck right
Oh,
here with the
right.
distraction.
Yeah.
Switching gears, you were looking at talking about having to be consistent, have that same mindset. You also do marketing. What's to boil everything in the world of marketing down, which can't be done. What's something that you see people missing out on that they really need to fix in terms of marketing from this point going forward?
So what I'm gonna say at first is gonna sound basic, and everybody's gonna go, "Oh, I know that."
Right.
But most people aren't even attempting to do what I'm about to say, and that is truly doing something different than what everyone else in your industry is doing. Most marketing in any industry or any demographic or any even like physical location all looks the same, right?
Dude, the
Restaurant.
coaching space is eaten alive, and I'm right there with it. I'm doing the same thing with the talking head video and generic mindset stuff. Go
Yeah,
ahead, sorry.
absolutely. Yeah, so but that's the thing, right? Like coaches are all putting out the same type of content, the same look, the same feel, basically saying the same thing. Restaurants, same deal. Insurance agents, attorneys, like whatever, like it all is the same. And the problem with this is one, you don't stand out, but two, us, the people, the audience, condition ourselves to become numb to that. So when it all looks the same over and over and over, it becomes really easy for us to ignore it. So there's a concept in the way the brain works, and I don't know all the scientific verbiage around it, but you know how like when you travel, you go somewhere and all of a sudden you're like, wow, look at this place. The
Mhm.
trees seem greener, the sky
Oh, it's
seems bluer,
wonderful.
right? All this stuff. And what happens is that it's actually not necessarily prettier than where you live. It's that where you live, your brain has seen all of it so much, it stops trying to compute it because it knows I don't have to use as much power to fill in the gaps because we see that tree in the front yard every single day. So basically, what's happening is your brain is saying, I see this thing so often, I can ignore it.
Right.
We can kind of be numb to it. That's what happens in marketing. And, I think then the next question someone would have is like, well, how do I stand out? How do I do something different? And, that's a endless pursuit, with it. But it is a matter of saying, how do I put out something that looks different than everyone else?
That's
That feels different, that,
good plug for
sounds
animated
different.
explainer videos right there.
Yeah. Right. Absolutely. There you go.
So
Uh,
what
y-
do
y-
you to put you on the spot, are you what are you looking at doing right now that looks or feels different?
So, great question. One of the things that I've felt is when I was growing up, art was a big part of my life. I just love to draw. And I was going to be an animator and all these things. And there's this element of me today that's like, oh, wow, I never thought that I would be an adult and that art wouldn't be a part of my life. So, what ended up happening last year is I was looking at it going, well, how do I be more creative? How do I put more creativity in this business that sometimes doesn't feel that creative? So, what it looks like for me now is I don't want to create content anymore. I want to create art. Like
Ooh,
I don't want my post to sound like everyone else. I don't want to worry about headline, opening sentence, call to action, or
dude,
any.
we've made it 20 plus minutes. I haven't mentioned Chat GPT.
Yeah, can you believe it?
Go
Yeah,
sorry. Yeah.
yeah, and so it's me wanting to figure out, what that looks like. I posted something on Instagram not long ago, and it's a black and white photo of me, and then through the iPad, I wrote on the photo. So like the text is actually on the photo. It's my handwriting. It's
Mhm.
not, not made through Canva or any of those tools. The number of private messages I got from people
Really?
who said, "That looks so cool, do that more. Do that all the time."
Wow.
And I'm talking from some really smart marketers, people a lot smarter than me, who
Sure.
are all falling all over it. And it's not that it was great, it's that it was different. Right. And
Yeah.
and so that's the thing is like for me, I'm just trying to view it as how do I make art? You know what I want? I want to kind of call out the people who will say, oh, like now because of social media and the internet, our grandkids will be able to go back and look at, what we did. It's like, no, they
No, they
won't.
won't.
Not unless it's really freaking cool.
No kidding. I mean, I've said that so many times where Sarah's grandmother, she kept a stack of let me get my hands in here, photo albums, and they only printed out the most cool, like you're saying, things of
Yeah.
what they did, and this is us at the national park, and this is us at church, and our kids will look back and, "Hey, Nana, what is this?" "Well, this is a picture of Nana's lunch one day, and she ate most of it, and this is a picture of Nana standing in front of the sun." Actually, it's 17 pictures in this last one. She held her hand up like the sun was right. Dude, that's not what they're gonna do.
Exactly, exactly, and that's the problem. It's like I would challenge anyone to take a scroll back through their social media feeds and see their content and see their marketing and think, hey, that stuff you posted 2 years ago, would you actually share it again
Oh,
today?
yeah.
You, you, you
Yeah,
know,
I've dude, I've run into that over the past year when I got lazy and wanted to sneak through buffer and look back and say, "Will I post that again?" Like, "Ugh, I don't guess
oh
I
yeah,
would."
Oh yeah, I've had that as well. I've had stuff that I'm like, "Oh, that's actually really good. Like, let me kinda repurpose that. Let me update it." And I've had other stuff that I'm like, "How did I ever have a career?" Like, who ever thought this was a good
Yeah.
idea? Like, what in the world? It's horrible, and but that's the way it should be, right? We look at pictures when we were young, we're like, "Well, what was I thinking with that shirt or that hairstyle
Right.
or, whatever." It's like but that's the thing. The problem now with marketing is that we simply act like we're so busy, we just gotta get something out there, and whenever we're just trying to get something out there, we just make something that looks like everything else.
Great example for anybody in the financial industry, or even if they want to take a look. There's a dude named Carl Richards, and he his whole thing is simplifying financial advising and making it idiot proof. And where everybody else is trying to give you facts and figures, he takes a Sharpie. I'm looking around for a Sharpie. He takes a Sharpie, that's a pen, and he will sketch out really basic concepts. And you look through all of his social media and everything else, and it's just these super basic Sharpie on white paper, and it explains the financial market beautifully and simply, and he gets all of the press and all the likes for it.
Yeah, I think I know who you're talking about. I think I've seen that.
He's got a good haircut.
And that's such a great example, right? Of taking the complex and making it simple, which we should all strive to do,
Mhm.
but then saying, how do I put this out there? And it doesn't have to look like everything else. I had a friend that recently send me something that they had posted and they were like, look at this graphic. I made it in Canva. And I had to bite my tongue because I want to be like, yeah, I can tell. It looks like it was made in Canva because it looks like everything else
'Cause it looks
that
like
that
everything
that's
else.
made in
Yeah,
Canva and comes out, and I'm not saying that that's always
sure.
bad, it's just like, what are we doing?
So, all right, we're gonna change it here. Throw you a few softballs to start rounding this thing out, and on that same topic. So, do less of doing the same thing that everybody else is doing. Do less distractions. One of the big things I've worked on forever now is trying to teach people how to get some more stuff done. Do more, but do fewer of the things that don't matter or aren't moving the needle. What's some Put you on the spot? What are a few things that you should be doing less of right now, John Michael Morgan?
Well, it's what we've talked about. I still need to tighten up. I'm engaging with too many low vibe people or low vibe content because I think it's the kind of thing to do, or
Mhm.
there's some kind of like social expectation of because I've known this person for 5 years, I'm supposed to respond or talk to them or whatever. And that stuff I don't always have time for. I think people are meant to be in our life, some for a reason and some for a season. So I got to do better at tightening where am I putting my energy. So I'm putting it in a lot of the wrong places.
So if you cut out some dead weight there and turn off some distractions and quit looking at, we always say cat videos, but what are the new cat videos now?
You know what it is for me? And this is
What?
just my own like weird, like sort of geeky thing. There's a bunch of videos on YouTube now of music producers talking about how they recorded famous
Ooh,
albums.
that is good
And
stuff.
I watch that stuff as if I know anything about
Right.
soundboards or being a musical engineer or whatever, but
Yeah.
they'll be like, "We put these mics up and we used this amp and then we edited this to get this sound," and I'm like, "Oh, that's how you got it."
Yeah.
As if I get any of it, right? But that will waste a lot of my time if I'm not careful.
So if you quit doing that, what do you strive to do more of?
I believe kind of to what we're talking about being different, like it's and you mentioned like Chat GPT, like the future belongs to those with ideas and storytellers. And so I'm looking at this going, how do I have more ideas, new ideas, fresh ideas, big ideas, and stories to tell? And for me personally, and I think this is good for everybody, I get that when I travel. So I need to free up more and more of my time to travel more. And I'll be honest with you, I sometimes fall into that trap of thinking that travel always has to be this week long,
Right. Mhm.
extravagant, go to some really cool place kind of a thing. It's like actually I could probably go away for 2 or 3 days and no one's gonna miss me. And I'm gonna come back recharged or new idea. Like I always get new ideas when I travel. There's always a story, there's always something. I meet somebody that's cool or interesting or whatever. So I would do that a lot more because I think that's where sometimes like the best ideas come from.
That's where the best ideas, and I've heard you say this, but that's where the best stories come from, the personal stories, so you're not repeating the same stories that everybody else is already telling.
Yeah, absolutely. Last time I traveled, I'm sitting at the airport waiting for the flight. A guy comes, he sits down across from me. We make eye contact, and he just goes, "Whew," and shakes his head. And I was like, "Yeah, man, I feel you." Right? Like we're just gonna all of a sudden bond. Well,
Mhm.
then he starts talking about where the airport we were at, where you drop off the rental car and where the terminal is, feels like 80 miles away that they make you walk. So he starts complaining about that. I also was exhausted from the walk. So we're
Uh-huh.
sort of talking about this. So then he was like, where's home for you? What, we started talking about what we were doing. And, I'm coming home from a business trip speaking at an event. He's also coming home from speaking at three different funerals.
Oh,
Yeah, and so it turns out he's a pastor. He starts talking about knowing the families. We start talking about how long he's done that. We talk about speaking. We talk about the difference between like speaking at something hard like a funeral versus, church on a Sunday or a business conference or whatever. Like all of a sudden, we're having this long conversation. I don't know his name, right? But I'm just now telling you the story on this podcast.
that's a good story.
Right, right. Yeah. So it's just that thing of like that's what I love about travel is like that story doesn't happen if I don't actually leave the house.
That story doesn't happen if you're just mindlessly scrolling through everybody else's non-stories.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
So, last one, what's a and I know you got a million of them you read. How many books you read every year?
It varies. On the low end, it's 40 to 50. On the high end, it's like 80 to 100. It just depends on the year.
Give us a book recommendation.
Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
I know it sucks. No, let me back up.
Yeah.
Give me the book you've read recently.
So I recently read a book called Originals by an author named Adam Grant. I believe he's written a few great books. Originals is about ideas, like we're talking about, and specifically where do ideas come from, kind of the history a little bit of ideas, how they actually impact and sort of make change. And I don't know, it was really good. It was written a few years ago, but it's to me more timely today than it was probably when it came out.
Mhm.
That was a really good one. I just finished reading it here recently.
Very good. All right. So, John Michael Morgan, author, speaker, group coach, one-on-one coach, does all the stuff, all the things. How can somebody get in touch with you
They
or
can,
find you?
yeah, they can go to johnmichaelmorgan.com. They can shoot me an email, which is john@johnmichaelmorgan.com. I'm on the socials, most of them. So
He's on the World Wide Web.
wherever. Yeah, yeah,
You'll find him with a fabulous beard.
that's right.
All right,
That's how,
dude.
that's how you know it's the real me.
I appreciate it. Have fun. Good luck. See ya.
Thank you.
Wait. Don't run off just yet. Do me a big favor. Hit the little plus sign to subscribe. Scroll down wherever you are and leave a very honest 5-star review and tell other people why they should be listening. And if you don't, an angel may in fact lose its wings. True story. Have a great day.